So in this video, I'm going to go through expanding double brackets. And before I do that, I just want to introduce how we write a multiplication in algebra or algebraically using letters. So the first question says, what is 2 times x? In algebra, we simply do not write the multiplication sign. We put these two things together, but we always put the number first. So 2 times x is 2x. This means 2 multiplied by x, whatever the x is. X is any number. It could represent a positive, negative, fraction, or a decimal number. Whatever it is, I'm multiplying it by 2. So what is the value, or what is 3x? I never write the multiplication sign. I put them next to each other. The number always goes first. It doesn't matter what letter it is. What is y times 5? Well, I put them together. I don't write the multiplication sign, and I put the number first. What is negative 5 times x? Well, I don't put the multiplication sign. I bring them together and I put the number first, and the number is negative. So it's negative 5x. Please do not write x minus 5, because this means x minus x subtract 5, which is not what we're doing. We are multiplying the x by 5, not subtracting it. What about negative 1 times x? Well, negative 1 times x, again, I'm not going to write the multiplication sign, and I can absolutely write negative 1x, but also I can write negative x. Negative x means negative 1x. Both are correct. 1 times x, again, I never write the multiplication sign, so I bring them together and it is 1x. Or if you see just an x, this means there is an invisible 1 next to it. Again, both are correct. 2x times 3x. The first thing you need to realize is that you are multiplying, you're timesing the 2 by the 3. Numbers can multiply together. 2 times 3 is 6. But then you have to multiply the x's. X times x. X times x is x squared. And you only ever get powers when you multiply. Only when you multiply do you get powers. You don't get powers when you add or subtract. So 2 times 3 is 6, x times x is x squared. And the same with question 8. 5 times 6 is 30. And if you're not sure, you can use your calculator to help you. You can only use your calculator for the numbers. 5 times 6 is 30. And then x times x is x squared. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. And then x times x is x squared. Negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. And then x times x is x squared. And just 1x times 1x, or x times x, anything multiplied by itself is a square. Y times y, y squared. A times a squared. A times b, we go back and we remember that we don't write the multiplication sign, but we put a, b next to each other. There's no point putting x, x, or y, y. Something multiplied by itself is a square. And something like this, x times y times z, we don't put the multiplication sign. We just put them next to each other. X, Y, Z. If they're different letters, they go next to each other. Now, this question 16 represents two unknown numbers. This is the first number, and I'm multiplying it by another unknown number. In algebra, we never write the multiplication sign. So if I want to ask you to multiply two brackets, I simply put them next to each other. And this tells you that they're being multiplied. If I wanted you to add, I would put a plus. If I wanted you to subtract, I would put a minus. If I wanted you to divide, I would put a fraction. But when two things are written next to each other, it means you are multiplying, you're timesing. So this topic is often called expanding brackets or expanding double brackets. And expanding means multiply. So it's an instruction, it's a command to multiply. So a question could say, expand these brackets. And two brackets next to each other means that you're multiplying the brackets. Now, there are different methods, but this one is very straightforward. You have 1, 2, okay, and I've very deliberate, I include the sign. This is a +2, it's a positive number. And I have this x, and I have that +3, and I'm highlighting the plus deliberately. Everything in the first bracket, that's the first bracket, that's the second bracket, has to be multiplied together. So x times x, x times 3, okay? So this x has to be multiplied by everything in the second bracket. And then this 2 times x, 2 times 3. And I would take it in order. I would literally do this first, this, and this. So x times x, I'm following the arrow, x times x is x squared. X times a +3 is a +3x. You must add these signs. And then I go to number 3, the third arrow, from 2 times x is a +2x. It's plus because it's a positive number. You have to put that plus. And then the final arrow, 2 times 3. I'm multiplying, not adding. 2 times 3. It's all multiplications. I'm multiplying. Is +6. Now, the next thing you need to do is simplify. This is not the final answer. This is the first part of your working. And if you get at least 3 correct, you get a method mark. So even if it's not 100% correct, if 3 out of the 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 are correct, you get a mark. And then you simplify. And you simplify by looking for like terms. These, both 3x and 2x are alike. They both have x's. And they give you a specific instruction. 3, +3, add 2. You get your calculator and you do a +2. Well, let's do it in order. +3, +2. You write exactly what you see with the signs. And it gives you a +5. It's not a negative number, it's a positive number. So my final answer is x squared plus 5x, and you must put this x. If you don't, you lose your final mark. And then plus 6. So your final answer is going to have 3 parts. X squared is in the front, in the middle is the term that has the x, and then the number on its own at the end. This question says multiply these brackets, and again I'm going to highlight them to show the different parts. I've got 2x and I've got -4. I'm highlighting the sign, very important. I've got an x and I've got a +5, and I put my arrows 2x times x, 2x times 5, negative 4 times x, negative 4 times 5, 2x times x, 2x squared. Remember, x times x, x squared, and times 2, 2, and I put the number at the front. And then 2x times 5, 2 times 5 is a positive 10x. If you're not sure if it's positive or a negative, put the numbers. That's a 2, times, you have to put the times, and then plus 5. 10 means a plus 10. Then you have negative 4. Negative 4 times x is a negative 4x. Remember, negative 4 times x, we don't write the multiplication, we just put them next to each other. So negative 4x. And then negative 4 times 5. Negative 4 times 5. Negative 20. And then I need to simplify. So these are the middle terms, the terms that have x. So I put the numbers exactly how I see them. I don't add anything extra, just the numbers. So this says plus 10. And then minus 4. This is a plus 6. So my final answer is 2x squared plus 6x. You must remember to add this x. The calculator can only deal with the numbers for you. And then minus 20. That's the final answer. And for this bracket, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to highlight. This is 5x minus 1. This is 3x. And this is minus 6. I'm going to put my arrows 5x times 3x and 5x times minus 6, negative 6. And then negative 1 times 3, negative 1 times negative 6. Well, 5 times 3 is 15. X times x is x squared. Very important that you remember this x squared. 5x times negative 6. Here is 5 times negative 6, negative 30x. Remember that x, 5x times negative 6. And then I do negative 1 times 3x, which is negative 3x. And then negative 1 times negative 6. Negative 1 times negative 6. A negative times a negative gives us a positive. So plus. Remember to put the signs. The signs are incredibly important. There has to be a plus or a minus between every part of the answer, every term. And then I look for the like terms, which are the two terms that have x. And I get my calculator and I write exactly what I see, nothing more, nothing less, the numbers. There's no multiplication, I'm not multiplying anymore. This is a negative 30 take away 3. There's no multiplying anymore. The brackets next to each other tell us to multiply. This is just a subtraction. Minus 30 minus 3 is minus 33x. So my final answer is 15x squared minus 33x plus 6. And they tend to be 2-mark questions. You get a mark if 3 of those are correct. You get the final mark if this is correct. Now you can get expand and you get x plus 7 squared. This means if the bracket is squared, this means that you've got 2 of them, x plus 7 times x plus 7. And you still have to do the arrows. So if I highlight, I've got an x plus 7. I've got an x plus 7. X times x, x times 7. 7 times x, 7 times 7. X times x, x squared. 7 times x plus 7x. 7 times x plus 7x. 7 times 7 is a positive 49. And I look for my like terms, and I only put the numbers and I don't put anything extra. Plus 7, plus 7. That's what I see, that's what I put in. Plus 14x. So x squared plus 14x plus 49. And it doesn't matter if the bracket is a little bit more complicated with more numbers. This means 2x minus 3 times 2x minus 3. So I'm going to highlight again. 2x minus 3. 2x minus 3. 2x times 2x. 2x times negative 3. Negative 3 times 2x. Negative 3 times negative 3. 2 times 2 is 4. X times x is x squared. 2x times negative 3, it's a 2 times negative 3. Negative 6x. And again, negative 3 times 2 is negative 6x. And then negative 3 times negative 3, a negative times a negative is a positive, plus 9. And then we find our like terms, and we write in the calculator exactly what we see. Negative 6, negative 6. And my final answer is 4x squared. This I simplify. I put into the calculator negative 6, negative 12x. Because it's negative 6x, take away 6x, negative 12x plus 9. And then the final two questions expand these brackets. I hope you notice that these brackets are nearly identical, but this is a plus 6 and this is a minus 6. So they're nearly identical, except the signs are different. And this is x times x. So let's have a go. X times x. X times negative 6. X times 6, or 6 times x. 6 times negative 6. X times x is x squared. X times negative 6 is negative 6x. 6 times x is a positive 6x, it's a plus. 6 times negative 6 is a negative 36. And I get my like terms. Minus 6, add 6. What's going to happen? What's negative 6 plus 6? The other way of thinking about it is a plus 6 take away 6. What's going to happen when there's a plus 6 and a minus 6? They give us 0. So I don't really need to write 0x, I just don't write it at all, because 0x is nothing. So x squared minus 36, and the x disappears because there's 0x. There are no x's left. This is again very similar. I've got nearly identical brackets, except the signs are different. This is a plus 1 and this is a minus 1. 2x times 2x is, so 2x times 2x, let's put the arrows, 2x times negative 1. And then I've got 1 times 2x, 1 times negative 1. 2 times 2 is 4. X times x is x squared. 2x times negative 1, negative 2x. 1 times 2x is a positive 2x. 1 times negative 1, negative 1. And I find my like terms, and I put them in my calculator exactly how I see them. Negative 2 plus 2. Negative 2 plus 2, I hope you know what that will do. Gives us a 0. So I don't need to write 0x. X doesn't exist anymore. There's 0x. So my final answer is 4x squared minus 1. And that is multiplying double brackets.